Okay, welcome my dear friends. Today we will discuss various methods and strategies for black box testings. So there are a large number of black box test strategies that have been reported. We will look at only few of them. The scenario coverage, equivalence class partitioning, boundary value testing, cause effect testing, combinatorial and orthogonal array testing. First, let's look at the scenario based testing. From our discussion on the scenario which we had during the object oriented discussion and object oriented design, we know that a use case consists of many scenarios. One is called as the main scenario, and then we have the alternate scenario. At some point in the main scenario, the alternate flows occur. These may actually end, or they might just have a separate set of actions and then have a similar action as the main line. Now if this is the kind of description of the use case with different scenario, then how do we design the scenario based testing? The first thing is to identify the use case scenario, and typically for the requirements document is the well written. We will have identified the scenario therein the from a text description for each scenario. We will identify one or more test cases, and the test cases are actually will execute the scenario. And then we identify the test data, and then also identify the state at which the system should be there for the test data to be entered, and that we say that identify the conditions that will cause this to execute, and then complete the test cases by adding the data values. If we represent our scenario in this form, that first is the basic flow, then basic flow with the alternate flow, one alternate flow, one with the alternate flow 2, and etc. We develop the table, and then each of these are the scenario, and we need to have that many test cases. For each scenario, we need to identify the conditions or the state at which the input to be given. The data input values, there may be many inputs to be given. The expected results for the each of the inputs, and the actual results that were observed. Let's look at the next black box testing. The scenario coverage was rather intuitive, even straightforward. Just identify all the scenario by looking at the SRS document, and then we just list out all the scenario, and then the condition under which these will execute, and the test data and expected output. So now let's look at the equivalence class testing. This is the another black box testing. In this approach, we look at the input data domain, and then we partition it into the equivalence class. The main idea behind partitioning the input data into equivalence class is that the program will behave similar way for every input belonging to an input equivalence class. So if this is the set of inputs to the unit, we identify equivalence class in the input, and the main idea here is that for this, let's say equivalence class 1. So this is the set of data and data set, or the data domain of the function, and then we have partitioned it into the equivalence classes 1, 2, 3 and 4, etc. For each equivalence class, all the inputs should be execute the software in similar way. That is, the same of the statements may get executed, of course. Here we do not have a knowledge of the internal of the software, but just by observing the behavior, we can guess that these are the executed in the similar manner. From each equivalence class, we select one value which to test, and if the scenario are extremely simple, then each scenario need to one equivalence class. But then it is the much more complicated. Normally every scenario might need hundreds of the equivalence classes or thousands of the equivalence classes. So we need to pick a value from each equivalence class, and one of the main assumption is equivalence class is that we want to reduce the number of test cases with which the system needs to be tested. And if there are all the set of test cases that are possible in the exhaustive testing, we have partitioned it into the equivalence classes E1, E2, E3. The way we have partitioned into E1, E2 and E3 is that each element in equivalence class E1, they behave similarly. The system executes similarly for each of the inputs. So if we execute one of the data here, then we have tested that behavior of that unit. So our work now becomes to test with one representative value from each equivalence class, and defining the equivalence class really helps, because testing using one value is equivalent to the testing any other value in the equivalence class. Each equivalence class typically may contain thousands or millions of data points. We are assuming that executing using one of these points, since the behavior is similar, it is same as executing all of them, and therefore the equivalence class testing drastically reduce the number of test cases. So even though it is a very good and effective techniques and reduce the number of test cases drastically, but the question that we are confronted is that how does one go about identifying the equivalence classes? One is we need to identify the scenarios. We need to examine the input data, we need to examine the output data, and then based on these we need to design the equivalence classes. But then that is a bit of a vague statement that we tell something more concurrent. We will give that in the front of a few guidelines. The guidelines is that if the input data is a range, we will have two immediate equivalence classes. One is the valid and two invalid. So the range is 1 to 100. Anything between 1 to 100 is a valid data, and anything more than 100 is a invalid. Anything less than 1 is the invalid. So we have one invalid equivalence class and one invalid equivalence class which has contains value less than the minimum value, that is acceptable, and one which has value higher than the highest value, that is the acceptable. So there are two invalid equivalence classes and one valid equivalence class. If the input is the set of data, like let's say A, B, C, these are all valid data, the system will respond to this. But then we have to invalid data which are not part of this set. Anything that is not part of this set as an invalid equivalence class. So for a set of data we have two equivalence class, one valid and one invalid. Valid belongs to the set and invalid anything other than that. If the input condition is the boolean, again we have one valid and one invalid. We give a boolean value or do not give a boolean value. Just to give some example, if we want to enter an area code, let's say the area code is between the 10,000 to 90,000. So the valid values are between these two, and anything more than the 90,000 are invalid, or anything less than the 10,000 are invalid. So one valid and two invalid. What about a password which contains 6 characters? A string of 6 characters containing 6 characters in a string, we consider it as a set of values. So all those strings which contain 6 characters, they are set of values. So we have one valid password which is any of these numbers of set. An input password which is not part of this may contain 5 characters or something, or maybe special characters. Let us look let's look at an example. How do we equivalence class partition? Let us say we have given three sides of a triangle and we want to decide whether it is an isosceles, scalene and equilateral. So this is a simple function. We take argument three sides of a triangle and display what is the type of triangle, and we want to design equivalence class partition for this. Looking at the output here give us a hint about the equivalence classes. So all the data sets for which it will be produced isosceles is equivalence class, scalene is the another equivalence class, and equilateral another class. Uh, so here is the equivalence class are easily identifiable from output, but for any input data we have always two equivalence classes, one valid and one invalid, or there may be several invalid. So to start with, there is a one valid equivalence class and another invalid equivalence class. We might have several invalid equivalence classes here which we might later identify, and also there may be several valid equivalence classes out of this. So given a problem to design the equivalence test, we first define two equivalence classes, the valid and invalid, and then look at the further division. The valid into set of equivalence classes, and each of these may again contain equivalence classes. We will just look at that. So in the next lecture, right now we are almost at the end of this lecture. Now we will stop here.